Hi, I'm Clem Gorman, and this is the first of my YouTube posts, and I hope not the last, and certainly may not be the best. Just a tiny bit about myself. I'm calling it the Late Late Show because I'm 81, and I'm in the late the late stages. But I hope it'll be amusing and also informative and confronting, sometimes and controversial. Because what the hell would you do it? Why would you do it otherwise unless I'm just trying to raise people's spirits? Behind me you see books, most of which I've never read. No, it's not true, I've read some of them. But some, and over here there's I don't know, you can see that over here there's a keyboard. Can you see that keyboard? Yeah, on which I play and I sing songs which the old people like. And I was just about to go this year. I've been practicing a lot and go this year into retirement centres and play the old songs for them and sing the old songs for them, the Gershwin and Cole Porter and the Frank Sinatra songs, all of those, which I learned when I was young and I still love them. And I write my own songs and I also sing French cabaret. And one of these days I'm going to do a French cabaret program for the old people, but the coronavirus has put a stop to all that for the time being. So Tim, the thing about thing about getting old is you start getting a lot of jokes in your head. I'm looking at my sheet of jokes because I have to do that in order to remember them. Because, for example, when you get old and you meet somebody, in my case a woman because I'm not gay, I had my walks on the wild side when I was 19 and that's why I know I'm not gay. And she's about my age, and you meet her, I remember you, and you think, oh my God, I remember her face. I know I knew her, but did I ever sleep with her? I can't remember. So you sort of make little remarks like, so we've known each other a while. You're sort of listening. Yeah, we slept together. Oh, of course I remember that, yeah. When I'm having a shower, and my wife comes in to talk to me about something or other, and she looks at my face. I understand. I totally understand. I'm not saying my wife, but one's wife. And younger people don't know the difference between a barrister and a barista, and you have to say, when I say barrister, I mean the legal person. Anyway, I'll be talking about a whole lot of topics such as anarchism. I'm an anarchist, and that doesn't mean that I throw books through McDonald's windows. I usually know books lying around in the street, and I've never actually demonstrated against McDonald's. I've demonstrated on a number of issues over the years, particularly when I was very heavily on the left, a Marxist, and when I was at university. I was taught at 16 universities, and I studied at, I think, 3 or 4, I think. 4. And the first one was the University of Western Australia. I was president of the Labour Club, and I was a Marxist for 2 years. I was president for 2 years, and I was a Marxist. I'm still not a Marxist, but I still have many views which would be associated with left, and many views which would be associated with conservatism. I'll get to that later. My voice is a voice of the middle. I'm not left, I'm right. And some people say, particularly on the left, they say, well, you can't be not left and not right. Everybody either is one way or the other. I think that's bullshit. And I think that I am perfectly entitled to say that I hold a middle position. I hate extremes. Far over to the left, there's this. When you're seeing it, it's the right. Far over to the left. That sounds funny. It's funny. Far over to the left, there's the hardline left view and the hardline right view, and I subscribe to neither of those. As an anarchist, I believe in power to the people. It's the word democracy, demos, cracy. Demos, the people, cracy, power. And I believe in pure democracy, which is where the people make all decisions and the politicians simply implement them in a parliament. And there's all sorts of controls and checks and so on. So, it's a bureaucratic system, anarchism, and a system which works through committees and juries and all those sorts of boring things, but it does achieve a middle line where the masses are in control. I'll come to that another time. Last joke, I was walking down the CBD the other day, and all these people, this is before coronavirus, and all these people are in shops and in taxis and trucks and so on, working very hard to keep me comfortable in my old age. And I'd like to say thank you to all you younger people for keeping me comfortable in my old age. I'm enjoying it enormously, as you see from all the books up, most of which I haven't read. All right, now, yes, finally about my beliefs, I'm going to talk about artists in a moment, because that's what I'm mainly concerned about. I'm an artist myself, I'm a writer. Many of you watching this know me, and I've written plays, and I've also written non-fiction books, short stories, articles, and poetry published. This is what I've had published. My most recent book with my wife Therese, my beautiful wife Therese of 28 years, is called Anthropide, and I should have to copy it. Oh, I've got a copy to show you. Here we are. I've got a copy to show you. There we go. I'll call it back a bit. And it looks sort of back to front, doesn't it? But it's Anthropide, and it's a book, and it's got all of pretty pictures in it. And the pretty pictures are, it's a book about Australian women artists who lived and worked in France last century. In the first half of last century, when modernism was exploding and all sorts of new isms were coming into the fore, Fauvism and Cubism and so on, post-impressionism. And it's a book about the women who went over there had an enormous influence, which hardly anyone knows about, on the French art world. And the French are very chauvinistic people. They think France is the best country in the world, and they're probably right. But they're not massively open to foreign influences, but they embraced these women. All the women got hung in the salons. So 300 women went. We're looking at 28 of them, which about whom we've got documentation. Most of those 300, there's no documentation. Their paintings have been lost. We only know their names, and unfortunately we can't write about them. And 28's a lot to write about anyway. It's a huge amount of fact. We had to research archives all over Australia and all the galleries and universities and so on, and interviewing a lot of people and just reading an awful lot of books, over 100 books alone, plus all the archival stuff. So we know our stuff, and we've got a very good book out. And these women not only had this big impression on the French art world, but when some of them didn't come back. Bessie Davidson got the Legion of Honour for her work, so she's a naturalist painter. But those that came back, introduced to Australia, Australians knew that there was such a thing as modernism, and they'd seen pictures in books and so on, but they didn't know the technique of many modernist forms such as Fauvism and particularly Cubism, which had new techniques of its own, the flat structure, for example. And they didn't know the theory very well. There wasn't stuff published in Australia about theory in all the Australian art schools, of which the Melbourne Gallery, the National Gallery Victoria Art School, was the best. All taught a very English thin paint kind of naturalism. That's all they taught. And insofar as I went into Impressionism, it was the English Impressionism that they taught. So these people were going to the then world capital of art, and they were bringing home the very latest information, and they spearheaded the later exponential growth of modern art in Australia. And they deserve enormous credit for that, and they deserve respect and recognition, which they haven't always had. So we're proud to produce this book. It's part of a large body of writing by some very, very good writers, not all of them women, about the women artists of Australia and the work they've done, and some of them have written about the women artists of Australia in France, mostly in Paris, but also in some provinces. And so we're part of a body of writing on this subject, and we're trying to bring together lots of really good monographs about individual artists and put it all into one book so that people can spearhead off that. And some of these artists we're covering, Marie Tuck and so on, are almost unknown until 3 or 4 years ago. And so we're doing our bit to bring them into the fold, and also working on, we write only about women artists now, Sarah, Therese and I. And the next book will be a biography. We haven't approached publishers yet, but we will approach publishers. We're developing a pitch. And if that gets up by the publisher, and it's very tough in these times to get anything published, but if we can, it'll be a biography of Wendy Sharp, the Sydney expressionist artist. And we're also trying to raise funding for another expedition to Paris to research Australia, women artists from Australia and other countries, the United States, Belgium, England, so on, Germany, Italy, who went to Paris at any time in the last 150 years and also embraced French academic theory such as expressionism, French expressionism, French existentialism, postmodernism, phenomenology particularly is a very popular philosophy, Marxism, feminism of course, negaturism in the case of African American artists who went to Paris. Negaturism was developed by Leopold Senghor in Paris, who was later the president of Senegal, but at that time he was a student getting drunk in cafes and so on and so forth, as one does. When I was a child, my philosophy, when I was a child, I attended for a little while, I went to 14 schools altogether, my father moved around a bit with his businesses. I attended Scarborough State School. No, yeah, Scarborough State School, not also North Perth at a different time. Scarborough State School. And there's bush near Scarborough. Now it's all ugly suburban cottages, but in those days it was bush. And our teacher took us out into the bush and he said, form a line behind me and we'll walk up this path in the bush and we'll talk about nature. And I, by some instinct, which I didn't understand then and probably don't understand now, I got myself to the end of the line, and as I started to move, I detached myself, only a metre or two, and I started going through the bush myself. Parallel, I could see them over there, see their heads bobbing through the trees, and I skinned my shin on a stump because I looked out, oh, hit this fucking stump. And branches bashed me in the head, even though I wasn't very tall. Anyway, I got there and I was little scratches on my forehead and puffing and panting and sweating. I got there at the same time as they did, and I got there under my own steam. I didn't follow a leader then, and I've never followed a leader since. I've had to pretend to follow leaders on several occasions because I needed to earn the money to get my superannuation so I could retire. But I've never believed in leaders, and I don't believe in them now. Doesn't matter if it's Roosevelt or Stalin or Xi Jinping, any leader you like to mention, I do not follow them. Some of them are decent people. I think Morrison's do a good job with the coronavirus. But I don't follow nobody. Anybody. So that was one thing that I sort of, in a sense, taught myself through my instinct. And I followed it ever since. And one of the other major teachings in my life was from my mother, who taught me always see both sides of every issue. And it's a hard lesson to learn because everyone wants to be passionately partisan. I'm right and you're wrong kind of thing. But life doesn't work like that. Life's always complex and there are many ways of looking at an issue. And that lesson is still at the heart of my thinking. Try to see the other person's point of view. And sometimes you think, this is a fucking idiot. I don't care about his point of view. I think he's a dickhead. But you've got to do it. I believe you've got to do it. I'm not telling anybody else what to do. I only tell myself what to do. But I think it's necessary. If we're to have a civilized society, an actual society, I know Margaret Thatcher said it doesn't exist, but an actual civilized society, then this interplay between people has to be based on respect for other people's points of view, even if you think it's rubbish. And if you think it's rubbish, you've got to have the evidence. Just as you've got to have the evidence and cardinal power. It's got to be logical. It's got to be evidence-based, intelligent, logical, and using the part of the brain which is the highest part, with the exception of the spiritual bit. So, I've talked about, I basically believe all the PC things. I believe totally in gay rights, bearing my teenage experiments in mind. It would be a bit strange if I didn't. It's hypocritical if I didn't. And I totally believe in feminism, and always have done. When my mum and dad split up, I took my mother's side. There was terrible grief between me and my father, which took many years to work on. And anyway, Okay, I think that covers everything now. I want to talk about the lone artist. There's lots of talk about the arts lately, and some good friends of mine have been putting pictures of themselves practicing their art on social media, saying, let's all do that to show the government and the people that we artists exist and we're sincere people practicing our art and we matter. Artists' lives matter. um, so anyway, yeah. I want to talk about the lone artist because people say I booked to take my wife to the ballet to Madame and it's been cancelled, of course. And they said, "Do you want to keep it for another time, or do you want to donate your tickets? We don't get much government funding." I thought, ballet doesn't get much government funding. The Australian Ballet, I thought they got huge amounts of government funding. How long I was? So I said, "Well, I'll donate them. Of course, here's the money for the tickets, and you had the money. That's great. Use it for whatever. Use it for somebody on their tippy toes." And I'll book again next year for another ballet to take my wife to. But those big institutions don't exist, and they all bring imported art into our country. They bring French ballet, sometimes Russian ballet, mostly French ballet. They bring opera, mostly Italian or German origin, some Russian, Italian, some French, and they bring drama, which is based on the principles enunciated in North America and Europe over many, many decades, many centuries, Strindberg and all that sort of thing. And they bring music, which is classical music. I love classical music. I just love it. I listen to so much Bach and Telemann in particular. I love Telemann over the centuries, over the years, I should say, over their centuries, and enjoyed it and love it enormously. And it's very moving, and I love Italian opera. But they all, however wonderful they may be, they haven't been developed in this country by our people. And I want to see more emphasis given to art that is developed in this country by our people. Cinema, painting are strong and recognised and respected. Drama, perhaps not quite so much. It's still mostly foreign drama in our theatres. 50-50 is a good sort of balance as a starting point. And likewise, dance is almost entirely imported. And I'd like to see more Australian-generated, Australian artists singing songs in an Australian accent, because whatever the faults and the good and bad points of this country, and there are many on both sides, it is our country and we are here, and if we get invaded, no one's going to really come to our aid, so we better try and be strong and independent and develop our own culture as best we can. Alright, lone artist is, like myself, a solitary person in between reading books, is, in my case, writing. I'm writing a stage play. I mean, what the fuck am I writing a stage play for? I mean, hello? When is there going to be a stage company putting on stage plays? I'm going to manage to put rings on my finger because I'm married and I should have my wedding ring on and I forgot to put it on. So, wedding ring goes on this finger, which is actually the left of it. I put this on because when I was a teenager, I was a member of a body gang. That's the sort of juvenile delinquent side of a switchblade knife. One that you go like that and the blade flicks out. I never used it, but I thought, I'm so tough, I've got a switchblade knife. I was 17, for God's sake, give me a break. And I'll take one of these, and it was there for a reason. Anyway, and also for decoration. So I've left all that long way behind. I'm not that person. I was a hippie in the 60s, for God's sake, and believed in peace and love and ingested large amounts of marijuana and quite substantial amounts of LSD, which changed my whole way of looking at the world. And I haven't been a body for 65 years, 4 years, something like that. So yeah, but that's why I wear it now to remind myself that whatever I may be like, whoever I may be now, and whatever I may be like now, I have not always been that person. And I've changed, and I may change again before I die. I'm in the waiting room. This is a late show, and I've still got time. So that's why in honour of my beautiful wife and the wonderful marriage we have, I'm so proud to wear this. Okay, the lone artist, alone, lonely often, battling away, typing, painting, rehearsing songs, whatever it may be that he or she is doing. Without them, there'd be no art, no culture. They are the bedrock and foundation of all culture. And they're in Australia, probably in the next street from me. I live in Terrigal on the central coast of New South Wales. Probably in the next street from me, and I know around me in Terrigal and Avoca, there are many artists, mostly visual artists, some writers, some musicians. And they struggle away, and very few of them make a living. David Williamson makes a great living. But most artists don't make a living. They apply for grants, and I've had a lot of grants from the Australia Council and so on. They apply for grants, and they send their work to publishers, and they send their work to theatre companies, and they try to get music producers to produce their music. And really, oh God, it's a hard road. And every now and then you get some success, and sometimes you have a career. And I've had a career, and I've had success, but I've also had a lot of disappointments and rejections. And puts iron in the soul, I think. But anyway, I'm about to close now because I've addressed my major theme, which is the lone artists. Have a thought for them, and let's ask the funding bodies to give more money to lonely people working in their studios or offices, and less money proportionally to huge institutions importing art from Europe. That's my message for today. And also to introduce myself a little bit, I've gone over time. I thought maybe 12, 14 minutes would be enough for most people to bear. It's now 22 minutes. Goodbye, and thank you from the Late Late Show.